Welcome once again to Lone Star Spirit. My name is Charles, and we are going to be talking about all things Texas. Today, my plan is to share some of my thoughts on what has really become a controversial subject, especially here in the state of Texas. And my hope is that it may spark some type of logical discussion in the comments. I hope they stay logical. I also hope this can be a subject that you and I can talk about in future installments on this channel. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that I am not here in any sort of characterization of myself. This is not Little Rage or any derivative of that character. This is me, Charles, in my truest form. I'm going to divide this subject up into a few videos to make it a little easier to digest and allow each topic time to breathe. This will also allow you, the viewer, to share your thoughts on this subject. Now, I'm sure many of you have already kind of figured out what the subject is, and that is the growing TEXIT movement. There has been a rather substantial movement to get a TEXIT referendum on the GOP primary ballot this year. Now, it has been met with some obstacles and really does face a long, hard climb to success. Now, as I see it, that's kind of to be expected. The Texas Supreme Court and other state and even local entities have voiced concern and outright opposition to the TEXIT movement. Again, that is somewhat to be expected. Now, there are several reasons for both sides of the TEXIT argument. Many or several, if not most, are valid in many different ways. Here, my goal is to speak my mind on this subject and get input from you, the viewer. Now, before we get waist deep into the discussion, I would like to clarify my stance so you know exactly where I'm coming from. For several years, I have been, more or less riding the fence on the subject of Texas seceding from the United States. Now, half of me wanted to see the Texas public rise again, be independent and free. The other half struggled more with the question of should Texas secede. As many of my longtime viewers have noticed, that I am Texas through and through. In my mind, there is no greater place on the face of Almighty God's green earth. I still hold that to be true, and I am confident that I will always see Texas in that light. Now, mind you, Texas is not perfect. There's no such thing as perfection when it comes to humankind, and probably never will be. However, I do feel that Texas has the potential and the ability to be one of the greatest places on earth. And to be, again, fully transparent with you, in my mind, Texas pretty much already is. But I do believe at the same time that Texas can be so much more, but it is being held down. I've always had the thought or was under the belief that Texas could not secede from the United States due to the agreement made at the end of the Civil War. It was not until recently, 6, maybe 7 months ago, that I found that there are established precedents that pretty much state otherwise. Most notably, the Montevideo Convention of 1933, which defined what a state is. I invite you to do a little research into that convention And also in the spirit of transparency, I do feel it is my obligation to let you know that I have become a member of the Texas nationalist movement. You can see I am part of the 1836 Club, and I do believe in the Texas First, Texas Forever moniker that the Texas nationalist movement has taken on. Now, I do want to also make it abundantly clear that I do not, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, hate America. I'm not an American bashing person. I'm not one of those people who's going to say if a certain individual is elected to the presidency, I'm leaving the country and all this other jazz. To me, that's stupid. It's short-sighted. It's asinine. But what I am is I have become ashamed of what America has become over the past 20 years. Now, there have been glimpses of hope, and we had 4 years of great things happening, but really over the past 3.5 years, I feel like the doo-doo has hit the fan. Now, Texas has been seen by people near and far basically in two ways. You either respect Texas and Texans, or you don't. It's one of the greatest gifts that God gave us is the ability to have free will. You can have your opinions and you can own your opinions. We have the ability and the right to display or voice those opinions. You can live your life as you see fit. And as long as it doesn't hurt anybody around you, you're pretty much good. With that free will, there should also be a sense of responsibility. Now, I bring this up to lay down the groundwork for the foundation of this video. And just like building a house, the ground must be prepared before pouring the foundation. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of today's video. Over the past several months, it's probably closer to a year, I've been monitoring the TEXIT movement. I've had many discussions with friends and coworkers on the subject. And to be honest, most people that I've discussed this subject with feel that Texas really should remain as a state under the federal government of the United States of America. And they do this for various reasons. Now, again, as I stated earlier, many arguments for Texas staying put have had varying levels of validity. I don't necessarily take individuals' feelings into consideration. If you're backing something, I think that you need to back it up with some sort of logical argument. Now, in my mind, are those people wrong? Probably not, but are they completely right? And the main thing that I hear coming up over and over again in these conversations, especially when we're talking about those who feel that Texas should stay with the United States, is that they feel that Texas would become vulnerable if they did leave. Again, they're not wrong, but are they 100% right? Now, the vulnerability that a lot of people will initially think of may be from more of a military aspect. Now, the United States of America has probably the most technically advanced and sound fighting machines in all of the world. I spent 15 years in the United States Air Force. I've seen firsthand the training and the discipline that goes into being an airman, a soldier, a Marine, a sailor in the United States military. But a lot of those vulnerabilities that were brought up came from different aspects. And it was political, some of it was social, and of course, economically. So this series that I'm going to be doing, we're going to look at some of those vulnerabilities and discuss them. I'm going to start here with this first episode, and I'm going to look at some of the views of the political vulnerabilities that an independent Texas may face. Now, it would not be an outlandish assumption that an independent Texas would have a very similar political structure to what we currently have in the United States, and that's the two-party system. Now, the issue with a two-party system is that it leads itself to increased corruption and deception of the citizens. Yes, we do the voting. Yes, we have a lot of say, and even our the Bill of Rights and the Constitution say that the true power lies with the people. But since we only have two viable political parties to choose from, it really makes it easy for both sides of the aisle to turn the whole political spectrum into a game of one-upsmanship. The losing party is going to go to great lengths to make the other party look bad. Through hook or crook, they're going to do it. And both sides are guilty of it, and it's going to be done by any means necessary. For instance, just look at the current state of the American justice system and the blatant weaponization of the courts. Also, there's much talk about America being a democracy. Now, this is where it starts to ruffle my feathers a little bit. When America was brought to light, when America was birthed, it was established as a constitutional republic. And I think it's very important that we do take a quick look at what the difference is between a constitutional republic and a democracy. So, a constitutional republic is a form of government in which officials are elected by citizens to lead them as directed by their country's constitution. Now, if you've paid any attention to a lot of the political rhetoric from both sides of the aisle, the word that keeps coming up is democracy. Democracy. They keep referring to America as a democracy. America is not a democracy. We have a constitution that binds the federal government and defines what they can and cannot do. A democracy, on the other hand, as compared to a constitutional republic, is a form of government where the majority of the citizens have unlimited power and can make laws that affect the minority. That minority could be anything. It's not classified by just the color of a person's skin, their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation, whatever it is. If they are in the minority, the majority have power over them. A constitutional republic also has safeguards defined by the Constitution to protect all peoples, where a democracy, on the other hand, is basically majority rule. Basically, it's 5 wolves and 3 sheep voting on what's for dinner. Guess who's going to win every single time? It's going to be the wolves because they are the majority. The Constitution, whether at the state or national level, is there to protect all individuals, and I do mean all individuals, from an overreaching government. And that's basically what has happened over the span. It's happened before then, but really over the past 20 to 25 years, our government has pretty much overreached and subverted the established Constitution. Things like the Patriot Act, and we've got the government getting its hands into health care and things like that. And I'm one who believes that anything that the government touches, they're going to mess it up. But at the end of the day, what America is a constitutional republic and not a democracy. Now, if Texas were to successfully leave the United States, there would have to be some serious changes made to the political structure. To begin, there would need to be a political system that allows all viable parties to have a standing in the government, be on equal footing, not just Republican or Democrat. The Libertarian Party, the Tea Party, and Independent should not be pushed to the side just because it goes against the more popular parties. Currently in America, there is a drastic uphill climb for a Libertarian or Tea Party member that does not have a R or a D beside their name to make any serious type of difference in the political system. Now, all the way back to the birth of this country, George Washington, the first president of this nation, warned us to avoid the two-party system. Now, it seems that most of us, especially as a society, a whole society, we've not heeded that warning. America is perpetually locked into a political system that, as I stated earlier, lends itself to corruption and deceit. Both sides of the aisle are equally guilty of the deception and that we hear about every day. We hear about this every day in the news. This mentality, unfortunately, has bled its way into the news media. You cannot turn on the television or radio and not hear a skewed commentary on the political events of the day. And to be honest, regular news stories that have no inherent political ties are once again politicized or sensationalized, is what I like to call it. Instead of simply reporting the news as it happened with truthful facts and without personal opinions, we are fed a deluge of insane ideology or outright attempted indoctrination. Now, understand, I am not advocating at all for the government at any level, whether it be municipality, state, county, federal level, to really determine what can and can't be said on either television or radio. Of course, we don't want loads of profanity on broadcast airwaves that children could be exposed to. There's things that should be kept down, but opinions of a political nature should not go into what is being reported on the news. If it's news, it needs to be reported as it happened with truthful facts. Anything that, again, that the federal government touches, and we see it every day, turns into crap in a handbasket, put it bluntly. What I'm saying is there should be some kind of accountability for things that are said and shown in the news media. It seems that the news media has been given an inch and they took way more than a mile. Now, the standard bearers for this type of reporting and misinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it, the standard bearers should be the citizens and not the government. If lies are being pushed in the news, which, again, we see every day, the citizenry should have the ability to hold those entities accountable. Now, unfortunately, that's a pipe dream. That's never going to happen. Why? Because there are individuals that would simply let things go, simply because they don't care for a certain political party or ideology. Now, that's how I see it happening. There's going to be a lot of people out there that just because someone is more conservative or someone is more liberal, they're automatically going to tune them out and not give them the ability to say what it is or what is on their mind, how they believe or give their logical explanations for them. I think that's short-sighted on both sides of the aisle. But the question I have for you right now is, how do you believe the news media should be held accountable to the people of an independent Texas? Next on the list, and this is something that has just drove me absolutely nuts. I have tried to figure out why this occurs, but law enforcement elections. I think these law enforcement elections should be 100% free of political affiliations. I never understood the need for county judges or sheriffs to have a Democrat or Republican determination or nomenclature next to them. The law is the law and has little, if any, interpretation based on a political ideology or stance. Laws can be changed in the legislature, but not in a courtroom. And we're seeing that every day. Laws are being underwritten. They're being changed in the courtroom. You can't change them at the scene of a crime, and you can't change them at something as simple as a routine traffic stop. Now, I also ask you to please feel free to voice your thoughts on this subject in the comments below. Now, the last little subject that we're going to talk about in this episode is, should an independent Texas be a constitutional republic or a democracy? I have an idea of where most opinions will go on this question, and I'm not going to divulge that. But I do believe that a constitutional republic has a better track record of protecting all people from an overreaching government than a democracy does. Also, even in a constitutional republic, there are some issues that will rely on a majority vote from the people. One such example would be the growing push for the decriminalization and legalization of recreational cannabis. Such determination should be left to the individual voters of an independent Texas. How taxes and the monetary gain for the government body would be used should be left to the legislative body. If by some strange stroke of luck, recreational cannabis becomes legal in the state of Texas, it would be up to the legislature to set taxes and how that money is to be spent. Is it going to be for schools? Is it going to be for veterans assistance? Is it going to be for infrastructure? But that's left up to the legislative body. But what are your thoughts on this? And feel free to comment on anything. And if you feel that there is a political vulnerability that I did not discuss here, please feel free to put them in the comments below. You can also reach me at my email, tmolr1973@gmail.com. Also, before we wrap up this episode, I do want to announce that I have decided, and I'll probably rue the day that I did this, but I have decided to get back on X or Twitter. And with that said, I can be found at true_LSS. If you'd like to follow me or hit me with a message or anything like that, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter. That's going to wrap up this episode of Lone Star Spirit. Again, you have thoughts, you have ideas, something I missed, please feel free to leave those comments down below. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up in my email. Until next time, I'm Charles. This is Lone Star Spirit. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.